بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إخواني وأخواتي المشاركين والمشاركات، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to be with you today in this third session of the 8th SMEs Day under the title Supporting Businesses Sustainability During and Post-COVID-19 Challenges and Opportunities. I'm Dr. Lulwa Almutlaq, one of the founders of SMEs Bahrain Society and SMEs ex-president. I'm also a businesswoman and president of Golden Trust Training and Consultancy. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our government leaders for their great and continuous contributions and support for SMEs during the pandemic of coronavirus COVID-19. Their financial and moral support took the great burdens from SMEs and will always be appreciated and remembered. Also, thanks to Bahrain SME Society for giving me and the panelists the opportunity for participating in this important event. With us today, 3 distinguished international speakers who will share with us their experience, challenges, and opportunities in their own countries and area of work in the light of changes faced by the whole world. The first speaker is Mr. Sebastiano Toffaletti. He is the General Secretary of Digital SMEs Alliance, Board Member of European Telecommunications Standards Institute, Chairman of European Cyber Security Organization, and he is also a member of SMEs Informal Steering Group. She will present a paper titled COVID-19 Crisis, a View on Europe Recovery for SMEs. Please join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
So very nice to meet you online. I'm Sebastiano Toffaletti speaking from Brussels in Belgium, Europe. I'm very glad to be here. If I can share my presentation, that will make it easier. So I will try to share my screen. So again, thank you very much for having me. I would like to thank in particular Abdullah Sam Al-Dairi for his personal invitation, and I'm very glad to be here with you today. I'll try to show a European perspective, a European view on the recovery, the COVID-19 recovery, especially for SMEs. Just a couple of words about myself, as it was introduced. I'm speaking here on behalf of the European Digital SME Alliance. Besides that, I'm in the board of the Telecommunication Institute, Standards Institute in Europe. I'm chair of the SME working group at the European Cybersecurity Organization, and I'm part of an OECD initiative for digitalization of SMEs. Just on the eve of the United Nations SME Day, we published a blog post which I co-authored with Vinod Kumar, CEO of Vodafone Business. You can find this on the website www.digitalsme.eu. And the blog post is entitled How to Ensure Small Businesses Are More Resilient and More Digital Than Ever Before. So the organization I represent is a European association whose members are national associations of digital SMEs, so SMEs that are in the ICT sector. And together they represent approximately 20,000 companies in some 28 European countries. The organization has a typical second-level organization where we have national members in different European countries, say Germany, France, Italy, and so on. These are what we call in this slide the meso level. So these can be usually national associations or regional associations. And these organizations represent at the micro level enterprises which are SMEs. Because we have a mandate to represent SMEs in the IT sector, in particular. When we speak about digital technologies, we tend to classify SMEs according to a pyramid. They go from non-innovators, followers, appliers, developers, and front runners when speaking about digital technologies. And we explain that our main constituents are those who are on the top of the pyramid, so the developers and the front runners. Indeed, we are talking here about an ecosystem, so everyone is connected, and these companies that are on top of the pyramid are necessary to the rest of the pyramid, because as an ecosystem, they are those who typically transfer the digital technologies to other companies. We call this type of companies the digital enablers. Okay, so these are companies which bring digital technologies to other SMEs, to other businesses. So they could be IT service provider, AI players, consultants, business-to-business software solutions, and so on. Now getting into the core of the discussion here, I just wanted to show some figures and data which we have in Europe about the impacts of COVID-19 on the economy. You see on the screen two maps of Europe, one in 2020 and one in 2021. So in 2020, you have the current estimates that are provided by the European Commission in terms of the GDP. So you see that we have a loss in GDP, which goes from a minus 4% to a minus 9% or above. We have figures that reach up to a potential minus 12%. You also see that the distribution is not even. We have certain countries, in particular Italy, Spain, and Greece, which are being affected much more severely than other countries. The good news is that at least what is expected at the moment, although with a big question mark, is that this is likely to be a V-shaped crisis, or a V-shaped recovery. And so we have a prediction that economies will bump back in 2021 with the GDP growth that goes from a plus 3% to plus 7% or even more. That is, of course, a big question mark, and the different reactions of the markets in the different countries will actually be different depending on particular specific conditions of those countries. At the same time, we have been surveying a large number of SMEs, and at the moment, what we see is that 90% of SMEs actually report to have received some negative economic impact. And the most impacted sectors seem to be the ones of construction and production, but also the food sector and the service sector are absolutely impacted. And in France, in particular, 90%, and in Spain, 95% of SMEs have declared to be affected by the crisis. Whereas we have an approximate 30% of SMEs which reported their turnover is suffering with an at least 80% loss, with an average which is about 50% loss at EU level. So these are just some data to give you the magnitude of the issue that we are, at least as our companies are perceiving it in Europe. Now, in terms of how we move forward, the EU has come up with quite some ideas in terms of recovery. We have a recovery strategy, and we have economic packages that are there to support such a recovery. Just to give you an overview of what is happening at European level, here I have some figures I will be brief, but the most important proposal is now being discussed, and it is the one that is made by the European Commission with the backing of France and Germany. That is for a package of 750 billion euros to tackle the crisis, support workers, businesses, and the member states. There are, of course, many other proposals which, for sake of time, I will not go into the detail. But indeed, the order of magnitude of the support measures is extremely important, and it is unprecedented. There is also, for the first time in the history of the European Union, the proposal for some kind of mutualization of future debt. Therefore, European countries, for the first time. So I hope you can now see slide number 9, which is going into details of our concrete recommendations for Europe's recovery strategy. We have recommended 6 ideas to the European institution bodies how to bring SMEs out of this crisis. Of course, the first of these points is about the liquidity gap. And we are saying in this respect, of course, governments need to support SMEs with liquidity measures, because this is the first and most important problem companies have right now. But we are saying this is also a great opportunity for government policies to indicate that it is about time to use the money companies receive from government to use it for their digital transformation. This is a challenge that is current and for the future of our companies, to make sure they are successful in the digital transformation. And here in particular, we are talking about a sustainable digital transformation, which will make the companies more competitive and allow them to grow in the future. The second point is to take the opportunity to reinforce digital skills in citizens and businesses. And we believe in particular this should be done through the role of public-private partnerships that will enable investment and upskilling programs to be spread among companies. The third point is to invest in R&D and provide financial support to digitalization. This digitalization, what we typically say, is not just using technologies, but it is long-term investments in innovation projects. Okay, it's not just buying a hardware, it's not just buying a software. It is an innovation path through which we take the companies in any sector, because digital transformation, the way it is defined by experts and the definition we support of this digital transformation, is rethinking a company business model in order to generate value through digital technologies. So you see, this is completely different from just buying a service, okay? It is a long-term journey that companies have to start. If I can move forward, and I hope you can see slide number 10, we have also highlighted the role of cybersecurity, and in particular standards, to make sure companies remain and are cyber secure. There is a big need to inform, especially smaller businesses, about the risks and give them very practical guidelines what to do to minimize the risks, because this is the world which is rapidly evolving, and this is a challenge that needs to be addressed. Fifth point is what we call the digital sovereignty. At least when we speak about the European Union, we would like our region to become more independent from providers of digital technologies that are coming from abroad. It's not that we are against trade and exchanges, on the contrary, but we believe it is strategic for the future of Europe to develop such technologies because otherwise our freedom and economic future will be at stake. Finally, we think it's the right time to take a stance towards fair taxation. And here in particular, we think it's about time to address the imbalances of international digital companies that exploit the European system and pay very, very low taxes in the range of 0 or 1%, and unfairly compete against our SMEs, which pay between 20 and 40% income tax. I hope you can see the next slide, which is just a meme of how we describe our position towards this recovery strategy. As I said, we believe that just using a software, just buying a hardware, is not a proof of a successful and sustainable digital transformation. Many people have nowadays started using Zoom, for instance. No blame against Zoom, right? But it's just an example of many citizens, businesses, which are using video calls, and they believe that this is the proof they are now digital. Okay, digitalization is a much longer journey, and it takes place through a real interaction with the digital ecosystem. It takes longer than just using a software, and so this is what we are advocating for. To conclude, I just want to name an important campaign which we launched during at the beginning of the COVID crisis in Europe, which was March 2020, when we started collecting companies that provided the digital solutions to address the crisis. These, of course, include video conferencing, but they go from artificial intelligence, e-health, digital solutions to really address the crisis in all and mitigate the effects of the crisis for businesses, for citizens, for governments. The campaign is a bottom-up initiative, was started by ideas from some of the companies that we represent, and nowadays we published an online database which is searchable, and it's on our website, and it shows more than 200 digital solutions that are there, many of which have been provided for free to address the issues of the crisis, but we do not ask everyone to make it as a mandatory condition to be free. Some of the solutions, of course, have a cost, but all of them certainly provide solutions to address the crisis. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to listen to the next speakers and participate in the discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's a good and valuable remarks and solutions that SMEs can really benefit from it by applying it. Can you stay with us, or can we invite some questions?
I can stay some more minutes. If you want to have some questions, maybe I can take them now, and then I will stay as long as I can. Okay,
let us have just 2 questions from the audiences. Please, if anybody has special questions for Mr. Sebastiano. Sorry for pronunciation. Yes.
No problem.
Any questions? I didn't see any questions even in the chat. I think you have telling them. Yeah. Thank you very much. Now we are going just to move to the second speaker, and he is a well-known person. Okay, Dr. Atef Elshabrawi. Dr. Atef Elshabrawi is a global innovation and development finance leader with more than 25 years experience in shaping and managing of entrepreneurship. Just micro and SMEs banking, Islamic finance, and social innovation ecosystem. His unique experience is based on his works for government, development banks, and funds, private firms, United Nations agencies, and as entrepreneur. He served as CEO of Family Bank Bahrain, Social Development Advisor to Bahrain for Development, Advisor to Centennial Fund in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, also a Senior Associate at Al-Mali Islamic Finance Consultancy, UAE. So he is also a national team leader of SDGs and expert at UNDP, founder of www.socialinnovationexpert.com. He has a PhD from Institute National Polytechnic. It is a French institute. And he has also a bachelor from University of Cairo. And he won several awards like Prize of Younger Researcher in 1995, Prize of Mohammed bin Rashid Award for Young Leaders, and with Family Bank in 2013, and Social Innovation Leadership Awards. Please join me to welcome Dr. Atef and heard from him, which will be an added value remarks and presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lulwa. I'm really happy to be with you even online. I'm very pleased to join you from Cairo, where I have a nice project with the World Bank and the government to empower about 1 million people for job creation and self-employment, which is a huge project started last year. I'm really honored as well to be a member of Bahrain SME Society and Vice President of the All African SME Society and different. I'm international board member of World Festival Startup, which is in Malaysia based. Really, today I hope you see the presentation. Is it clear?
Yes.
I thank you, Sebastian, for the introduction. In fact, this is my 14th webinar in the COVID-19 and the innovation in the period. And I try to be very squeezed to use that. In fact, the word COVID-19, coronavirus, and all of this, we are welcome to the new normal, a new world where things are no more the same. I just summarize what we have worldwide by the figure in front of you, this slide where we see the global growth, economic growth, when we can see just the time when the financial crisis 2008, and we have a little down peak, but today we have a very estimated in front of global phenomena. No need to describe whatever our colleagues are describing. I'm just going for SMEs. This is the World Bank organization SME Finance survey, which was implemented in 47 countries for 85 organizations who are supporting SMEs in the world, just to take the health of what's happening. As you can see from the right hand, the major problem we are facing, the SMEs organization who are supporting SMEs are pretending that we have problem in decline of sales and revenue. We have a problem of, as you see, reduced inflow of client collection. We have a various problem which we will, as my colleagues from the other Gulf countries are describing. Each country has its own ecosystem and its own reaction. Not only from the behavior of SMEs and the strongness or strengths of internal or local SMEs, but also from the ecosystem and solidity on the robust of that and the stimulus we heard our Sebastian, our friend, talking about stimulus. I'll talk later. So I will be very short and go to I will demonstrate for you one single example. In fact, I have two presentations for the African continent, but perhaps African continent is so sophisticated in terms of diversity, and we don't have a similar example where we don't have, as our friend mentioned in the European Commission or the United States, where they have a proper ecosystem of stimulus. So I will take Egypt as an example. And unfortunately, if you like to look for the Egypt 2009 was going an extreme ramping growing curve. The growth of the economy goes from 2.2 to 6%. Records first time in 15 years that the government doesn't have deficit, it has a kind of surplus. Growth driven unemployment down from 12 to 7.5, and import decreased by 25 in the first quarter of 2020. I mean, even during coronavirus, the economy was going very well in the first part. Standard Chartered edit last year a study mentioning that Egypt might be among the 10 leaders of economic lead in the world in 2030, where it might have the 7th plus rank, with the total GDP of 8.2 trillion US dollar. It means that Egypt was going glomery, and some of the projects we have here, this is a SDGs implementing initiative, which are in terms of about 250 initiatives covering all the economy and different sectors. So let's say that in until 2009, from 2016, when the Egypt has a reform with the IMF, started quickly to reform a lot of things and the ecosystem, and even the Egyptian ecosystem for startups was saluted by being the first absorbing the foreign investment, particularly for financing startup in 2018. And sudden of all, we reached this shock of coronavirus. I translated this. This is the daily sad news. We have it in everywhere, where we have a daily records of our cases, and you can notice that Egypt, unfortunately, started to have a higher rate of cases, about 1,500. This to be considered, because in the beginning, and we have a total about 61,000 cases and about 2,500. So in terms of number of population is 100 million, so it's a huge country. But in terms of sustainability and resisting the COVID, the economy supported little better than others. But if you go for the economy, where is our talk today, we have little. We have not a gloomy situation, where the loss in GDP is estimated to be 0.8% per month. Imagine that we might reach 1% of the global GDP of the country is lost every month. If you look for the internal structure of the GDP, you will find that 40% of GDP coming from informal economic activities. Informal economic activities, we have about 50% of micro and small enterprises in Egypt are informal. So those people don't have a kind of coverage, they don't have a permanent salary or permanent contract, so they are most heated, and they're based on informal value chain, informal marketing. A lot of challenges are facing them. If you look for the remittance, money transfer, it grows last 5 years until it reached 10% of GDP, about 27 billion US dollar a year. Most workers in the Gulf countries and European countries, and this is hit by the price of oil price plus Corona. So we have double impact of the remittance, which is lower. We have 5% of tourism, which was 13 billion US dollar a year. Now we have 80% of records of booking are cancelled. We have 2.2 of Suez Canal, which the international trade movement is down. So according to announcement of the Minister of Finance last month in May, early May, he said that the government is estimated to lose about 50% of its income. I mean, even the government is not able to collect, taxes and things. So if you look for the structure of the impact, really the impact is strong. If you like to go a little further, you see here the structure in front of us. This is the employment structure impacted by the COVID-19. This is a recent study we did with collaboration with one of the Chamber of Commerce here in Egypt. That employment sector most heated is agriculture, construction, wholesales, manufacturing. This is an order of the heated. Female employment, and unfortunately female employment are the most heated worldwide, even the States. We have also the question of having 40 to 50% of the economy from informal. So if you like to summarize, and this is nice figure to show, we never have losers or winner from the same action, because the same action has pros and cons. And unfortunately, if you look for this picture, you can have a little optimism. And in the left hand, we have the losers. Unfortunately, the losers are the major tourism sector, aviation, automation, you know, this construction, manufacturing, and financial service, education, and oil. However, in the term of agriculture, we are in the starting to in the middle, because the marketing and, you know, Egypt last year was the first country to export orange and a lot of raw vegetables, and that's kind of international trade value chain disruption also stopped. However, we have still winner, and we have the most winner are e-commerce, ICT, you know, this personal healthcare, medical. So this is study done by the German Chamber of Commerce, showing that, okay, we are not all user, we are not all winner. And here we have, unfortunately, the most hit and impacted sector. We have tourism sector, travel, attraction, hospitality, recreation, you know, all the sector. We have to differentiate between two things. We have sectors who are human-based human contact, and sectors when we don't have a lot of human contact. So every human contact, like tourism, like was hit, and the amount of loss is already recorded. Loss is about 100 billion Egyptian pounds, sorry. So looking quickly for what the government did, as our Sebastian, our friend, showed us. Before going to that, I tried to brought some of the feeling of the owner of SMEs in Egypt. This is also a study done by the announced last week, I guess 2 weeks back, regarding that feeling of owner of SMEs regarding what's happening. It compares between the 3rd of March and the 10th of May. And if you look, people are asked, does the coronavirus have a medium long-term negative impact on your operation? So in March, they were saying about 47%, they were saying, okay, it has a big impact. And this, unfortunately, is increasing. It's 54%, and things are worse here. If we ask them, do you believe that we can get back to normality by end of May? You see the percentage grows from 64% in March to reach 84%. So people are owner of SMEs now believing that it is we are in a problem. So the government in Egypt has done kind of a standardized package, a stimulus package. Unfortunately, I mean, it's little small to show, but I will share with you the slides. It goes from tax cutting to annual raise, to stop the annual raise of prices, to make kind of debt relief. I mean, I try to have it here. This is a standard form with all the details. So we have about 35 measures covering the 4 items. I try here to get some of the major things which we can debate on. We have 4, the policy measures in Egypt were distributed in 4 parts. One part for monetary, monetary policy, like cut the interest rate by 3%, delay the due time. I mean, as most of countries are doing this kind of reduce the tax on investment. The stock market has a special boosting tax wave. If you look for the business, as I mentioned earlier, Egypt is trying to export. So a huge support is going directly to exporter, to about 1 billion Egyptian pound to exporter, paying also the indebtedness of the about 2,000 SMEs. So we have kind of support in all sector. I will be very quick. I know that the time is running.
1 minute, please. 1 minute, Doctor.
So before ending, so the stimulus measure or the impact has 2 dimensions. The first dimension, I was just mentioning that we are dealing with a problem that induced impact on the business, but we work on resilience and recovery. And this part we use, I like Peter Drucker, and he say that the entrepreneur always searches for change and respond for it. So we looked for the entrepreneurs, and we in Egypt launched since March about 10 hackathons competition. The National Academy launched طبق فكرتك, which is implement your idea. The tech, the Ministry of Telecom organized also a lot of one of the many various platforms. Like Yumkin has a kind of hackathons for particular ideas regarding how to deal with COVID. I might end by this nice theory when you know that a lot of people don't think that entrepreneurship is art and science. just to end by saying that, okay, if you look for the left hand, we have the exploration. Exploration, it means look for the opportunity, look for the idea, look for what to do, for the need. And to the right hand, we have the exploration, which is a science. So what is the difference between the situation we have now, that we have all, in fact, my work with all SMEs African Association, we are working in developing a new business model, you know, that every single business item within your company, within your enterprise, has to be reshaped and rethinking according to the situation. So a lot of people now are focusing in the part of finance. However, they are forgetting that we have no more the same. So to end with this slide, this is my last one. In fact, I just gave a takeaway, you know, that while an economic downturn looks probable, opportunities are here. We are talking today with SMEs on our SMEs organization. So we are based the industry of SMEs and entrepreneurship and opportunity and grabbing the opportunity. So I think that entrepreneurs can turn the problem. The second, economic impact, already said that the stage for debit and meltdown and slowdown. We have to understand that a lot of SMEs now are accumulating debts and non-paid bills. So the question now is not to run for the money, but we run to change the business model, to reposition our markets, to mobilize untapped funding sources, not only to get loan. The last point, we don't know yet what the scale of impact of COVID-19 in the economy, but only resilience and sustainable innovation. I'm very happy to keep saying resilience and sustainable innovation. I guess that the future will show us, the next 2-3 years, we'll talk about those two terms. Thank you for your time. I'm happy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atef. Thank you very much. You have been really very good information, and it is good to know about all of these innovative ideas and innovative actions. And I'm sure that the participants have, value these, and they will be benefit from that. Now, just we'll move to our last panelist, not last but not least, our panelist, Mr. Michael Lee. Mr. Michael Lee is honorary professor, Budapest Metropolitan University, and he is the author also of Design Thinking Workshop. He is a founder of Yes Camp, Yes Startup. He is the CEO of Kribiz Factory, and he is also the CEO of Kribiz Factory Books. He is a founder of Hack for Now. He is a founding chairman of G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance 2010, and he is also president of G20 Korean delegates, member of Task Force B20 Task Force, and he is also ambassador in South Korea World Union of Small and Medium Enterprises from 2019 till now. Also, he is G20 Yes Summit 2014 in Sydney, Australia. He's a Global Entrepreneurship Forum 2014 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He is also Global HR Forum. This also what some of the participations like World Youth Leaders Forum 2018, Yes Startup 2018, also in China. He he has moved from Spain to China to Belgium to South Korea, presenting to SMEs and startup. I would like you to join me in welcoming Mr. Michael Lee to give his presentation. Please, Mr. Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my great pleasure to having me here. So now today I want to explain about the current situation for the SME during the COVID-19. Especially, this is not only one country problem, it's called a global pandemic. So I think I briefly introduce about Asia, and then what happened, the pandemic situation. Later, I want to explain about some recommendation. I believe Asia is the future because Asia, one of the largest continent and populous continent. Also, the other one it means is the biggest market in the world, because we have more populations. They need something to buy and sell it. And the last one, Asia is the most innovative continent. Why? In the history, Asia invented so many things for human life. because we got the special DNA to be innovative. Here's like a page explain about some Asian information. And the second one is about the Asian state of the SME. I think that more than 99% of the enterprise is come from the SMEs. And then more than 60% of employment from SME. And then more than 50% of the GDP come from here. Also, export everything. There's a SME contribute to so many things. So many people already mentioned that this is a very important thing. I mentioned that SME is a very core engine or DNA of the well-being and sustainability of the national economics. So I mentioned that many people is a global pandemic through the COVID-19. We call the VC and AC and the BC. Normally BC means before Christ, but now we call before coronavirus. So that is a very important one. And then also there is impact to so many things area. I just want to share the three simple impact. First one is economic growth. And globally in this year, they mentioned that minus 3% economic growth in worldwide average. And also some Asian country is a 1.1. And then also 25 million jobs lose in worldwide. And the more than 50% workforce, they're losing livelihood. This is a huge challenge for everyone. And also in the World Bank, the survey for all the SME around the world, they said, is your business currently impact or not? And then more than 92% of all the SME, they mentioned that a huge impact their own business. Even though more than 43% of the SME, they mentioned they shut down or not operating currently. And also in SME, they mentioned that when they open again, it's more than 21%, they said next 3 months, we cannot open it. Some people say that maybe 1 year. And then 2%, they mention it, we never open our company again. And through the COVID-19, they had mentioned 3 different kinds of trend. First one is the consumer area. We define consumer area trend as online, untapped. Most of business were highly successful during the COVID-19 related to online uncontact business. The second is a company. All the government recommended the company employees to work from home so that they smart work. So the flexible working hours and then diversification of the workplace, they mention it. And then also all the manufacturing trend, they're going to the smart factoring. They encourage the government, improved automation and the robot. And then also in the future coming soon, they were using the 5G and I cooperate together to develop the smart factoring system comes up. And currently, COVID-19 mentioned that is a EU and then Egyptian. There's many government support a lot of things to help. Here's the 4 area mentioned that the labor area, the federal area, and the financial instrument, and the last one, structural policies. And also, World Bank, the research in this year, most of the company favor finance support. What is it? And most of them say that we need a tax waiver and then also financial program. From each micro and the small, medium, large company, there's a different demand, but most of the top 2 is the financial programs and the tax waivers they're looking for it from the government side. Because I also measure about the SME supporting program in Asia country, you can compare, you can see what the government supported each their own for the SME one. The last one I mentioned that currently what kind of things do we need to help the SME to survive it during the COVID-19 world? Reigniting the engine of the SMEs. How? First one, simplify the regulatory environment. All the government, they give the benefit of the finance, other things, they ask the lots of papers. One funny thing is our Korean government give us some grant to the SMEs. And then when people go to the place, a bank and the government agency, they stay more than 1 day. Because before the day, open the office line, they stay there and make a queue. And it takes like several hours to apply it. it means many people do not get the right opportunities, chance to apply. Also, they have to write down lots of paperwork. So if you reduce the paperwork or administrative, the barriers, and then at the time, the SME a little bit much better. The second one, everyone is mentioned that easy to access the finance. Many small company and medium company, they don't have the money, so they using their own the house, they rent everything. But now they say, the government say, we need your credit. If you're good credit, we can lend your money. No credit, we cannot do it. Current situation, many SMEs, micro one, they don't have enough the credit to borrow the money from the bank side. So that the government please, losing down, cut down the barrier to borrow the money from the bank or government side. The third one, for the pandemic, no traveling, so difficult to export their products around the world. So that the government, we want them easy to access the global market, to recover the global value chain again. So now that there are many, e-commerce platform around the world, but logistic ones still quite expensive to sell and buy it. So how we quickly recover the global value chain is good for the SME to go to the global market. And the last one, we need to support the training opportunity for the employees and employers. Why? Because without proper training, we cannot stand up for next time. So especially we need to understand the global mega trend, and then also the design thinking, especially design thinking is human-centered, innovative approach to solve the problem. So it help the CEO, the employees that think a different way to solve the current situation. And then also they need to understand cross-cultural communication, because nowadays we call the globalization. So we have so many different cultures come together. So we need to learn global etiquette, how to communicate in their own situation. It's very important for them too. So I wanted to mention the last strategy, how to survive using the COVID one. C for the cost cutting, O for the openness is the flexibility, the V for the virtualization, and I for the interaction. The more time to spend with the customer. So spend time to talk more detailed one. The last one, D for the digitalization. This is a survival strategy for all the SMEs during the COVID-19. Whenever we had the difficult times in the movie, at that time they searched the light to call the Batman or Avengers. Nowadays, it's all people looking for the SME, especially you, to help everyone. The last one, you was born to be super nature. I wanted to ask the government side leaders, please trust the SME, because you do not take a risk to help the SMEs. Who gonna trust them? If you trust them, they can return to you for the economic growth and job creation. You know it. Please trust SME more and more. And the last one, I ask the SME, all the employees and the leaders, trust yourself. If you do not believe yourself to survive this situation, who's gonna trust you? Only you to solve the problem. Oh, thank you so much for listening one. And I'm sorry I cannot share my presentation with you, but in the future, I wanna post it and you can see what's going on in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Lee. I assure you that you have great presentations. I look at it, it's very well structured and well designed. And I wish that, all the participants can have a look at to it. But as you said, you are going to post it and they will be having it. I just would like to thank all the panelists, for their valuable information and the knowledge that they contributed to this panel discussion. And I would like to open the floor if there is any questions. I think that there are on the chat. There is a long one. To all the panelists and attendees, more innovation and adaptation needed for SMEs with COVID-19. What do you think of current international coordination, as I see still not at the level what should be, despite all the things we have daily surprises from COVID-19. And as most of international medical and economic experts, we think we will live with COVID-19 for a period rather than saying post-COVID-19 despite better control. Yes, please, Dr. Atef.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear this question, because really the international efforts are going for the innovation are dispersed into some groups. I'll give you, for example, our friend from Belgium is not no more here with us. The European Commission posted a lot of challenges for innovation and coronavirus and COVID-19 impact. In the 2-3, I guess he's with us now. From my experience, we have already here in the Middle East, you know that UN has a UNTIL, which is an innovation organization established about 2-3 years back, backed by the Finnish government for promoting the innovation. We have done kind of competition and hackathons. I mean, from the level of the organization, we had countries facing the problem, and the European Commission has launched kind of hackathon and fund for innovation. In the Middle East, we have a lot of initiative. We, in the Arabian Gulf University in Bahrain, we did some webinars on innovation for COVID, for example, and we share it with some of international organizations in Africa. Mm-hmm. In countries like Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, most of countries have launched national-wide competition for COVID-19. In terms of international organization, I gave you one information, which is later to be confirmed. I guess some of us, of our participants from UN created 3 years back a unit which would under the name of I4C. I participated for doing a design thinking lab for them, for innovation for crisis. And I'm trying to revamp the communication with them. In fact, they worked in creating a design thinking labs with refugees in Jordan, Turkey, particularly Iraqi and Syrian refugees. So this structure is now under revision to go for going globally for global competition for innovation.
Thank you, Dr. Atef. Thank you for your response. Anybody else would like to add comments to the comments or the questions? There is another one. Let's say here, I will be happy to send. No, this is from the panelists. I thought that somebody has sent us something. No, this is the only it. Any final comments? Anybody would like to say any final comments? Yes, please, Michael. Just, okay, yes.
So I think it's an international cooperation so important, because no one finds a solution by themselves, especially when you the vaccines, other things. So this is a very important moment. Also, is Bahrain, they bring the series different continent to share their own problems, their own solutions. Sometimes we need their own solution because we are different, but sometimes we miss some part. So we need a more collaboration, especially government level, also SME level, and to share all the information together, especially from the Europe side, you mentioned about the digital solutions. You use to collect all the information to share all the SMEs. This is a brilliant idea, because I never see such a solution for in Asia country, other continent. So that things is a best practice, especially also I work for the B21. So also they looking for the best practice to solve their solutions. For this,
we are here
in the future work too.
Yeah, we are here, and you are welcoming any collaboration and cooperation event. So I would like to thank you so much, because just the time, and I would like to hand the mic to the organizers. Thank you very much, and we are so happy to have you with us, and great contributions. Thank you.
I just want to echo the calls for more collaboration from the colleagues, which we just heard from other regions, because I think we in Europe have done a very good job, at least in having a coordination among our countries, and this has proved to be effective, but also very difficult. Now, the next challenge is really especially for SMEs, to try to have a broader collaboration, perhaps on a worldwide, or at least on a wider regional scope, because having common initiatives and sharing best practices and understanding from each other's, even just having data, because nowadays we very often don't have data about SMEs, what is happening, the impact of the crisis, for example, the solutions that are used here or there, how are they working? And I definitely call for a very larger collaboration, at least among the alliances, among the associations like ours. We are very, very much willing to further collaborate with the Asian or the African alliances, or even American, if there is one, because we think a broader collaboration would be better. I also think we will need the UN to have a specific agency dedicated to SMEs, which to my understanding now is not there. So this should be, maybe a joint effort to convince the UN to have an agency to work for SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.